Does being autistic make you more judgmental? Now bear with me on this one because it's not actually as bad as it sounds. So I'm autistic, my family are autistic, and I grew up in a very judgy household. So I grew up with not just judgments on other people outside of our household, but a lot of judgments on me as well. So for example, my stepdad used to call me Thunder Thighs when I was, 10 years old, 11 years old. My mum would always pick holes in me. So if I had a spot or any kind of flaw on my face, she'd be, picking, at that, making me very aware of that, even though, of course, I was already very aware. All sorts of things like that. And it was drummed into me that your appearance was the ultimate. So you had to be pretty, you had to be attractive, you had to be desirable, you had to always look your best, all these sort of things. And if you weren't attractive or pretty, then more for you. And that's a really horrible thing to be and way to be brought up. But that's sort of how I was brought up. It was like you were superior if you were attractive to the opposite sex. And that's what it was all about. And it took a long time for me to realise that that isn't the case. And I know that sounds really common sense, but when you've had something drummed into you all your life, it does take a while to get through that. So that's a little bit of background. So back to the point of this video. Does my autism make me more judgmental? And what I mean by that is, I don't mean nasty judgmental. So for example, seeing someone walking across the street and look at her, isn't she fat? I don't mean like that. I mean, it makes me judge everything that someone says. So for example, I'm out and having a conversation, or I'm watching a television program, or any scenario really, and I will then go pick apart that conversation, pick apart that scenario, and literally judge every part of it, because I'm very black and white in the way I think. It's either right or wrong, it's either this way or that way. And whereas I can now, as an older person in my 40s, see other sides, I used to find that very difficult, and it's something I've really had to work on, because I know that I can pick apart everything that someone's just said to, sort of the nth degree, to really try and process it. And I've worked out that this is how I process things. I process my emotions, I process what just happened in that conversation or what just happened in that scene on the television by talking it through. And that might be with my husband, it might just be in my mind, it might be, talking to myself, but I'll pick it apart and really analyse it and judge it. And it can be, it can be a sort of righteousness, if I'm truly honest. You can think, because you're very thinking in very black and white terms, that, well, you're right, and that's the end of it. I saw a great meme the other day. Someone who's autistic had put it up, and it said, "I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to tell you all the ways that I'm right." And that's exactly it. And I don't think it's because you necessarily think you're better than that person, but I think it's because the way that a lot of us think is so rigid and so black and white that it can be hard to see all sides, and it can be hard to adjust your way of thinking. So that's really what I'm talking about in this video is, do you find it difficult to see someone else's point of view? Do you make snap judgments, or do you take time? Do you have to take a step back and process the scenario, whatever it is, the conversation that's just happened? Because I know I do. I know that I may take it in to some degree while I'm talking and while I'm there, or while I'm watching the film, but then it's only after the film or after the conversation where I'll think, oh crikey, she didn't mean that, or that's not what that meant, or that's how that come across, and I'll go through it and I'll pick it apart and I'll judge it and I'll discuss it and I'll make sense of it, because my processing is a little slower than a non-autistic person. So that's what I mean, is does it make you quite judgmental? I think it can make you quite quick to judge and make snap decisions because it takes us longer to process our emotions and process our thoughts. So it's not necessarily that you're rude or judgmental or righteous or any of those sort of things, even though you may come across that way at times. It really is just that your thought processes are slightly slower, and that you may need to take time to actually think about what just happened and how to respond. So it's just being aware of that and trying not to make those quick snap judgments, because that's where I sort of fell short as a younger person. I'd come across as very judgmental and very rude. And bear in mind, I didn't know I was autistic. I was not diagnosed till the age of 42. And like I said, I'd come from a very, very judgmental background. So it was just the norm for me to be judgy to people and pick people apart. So I've really had to work on that, but I think it's something that we must work on if that is something that's in our nature, because it's not very nice for other people. So take the time, perhaps say to them, you know, it takes me a little longer to process this, so I'm going to come back to you on that because I don't want to make a snap judgment. Be aware of it and do your best to not make the snap judgments. I know it can be really difficult. On yourself as well. Don't make the snap judgments on yourself. Be kinder to yourself too. It doesn't just apply to other people and other people's situations. Please let me know. Please let me know what you think on this subject. Do you make the snap judgments? Do you come across as rude? Do you have you taken the sort of righteous stance because you're thinking very black and white and I'm right and you're wrong, end of? How's that gone for you? Have you learned to work around that now and perhaps take a step back and think about it before making a decision? Let me know how it's gone. It'd be really interesting to hear. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day, and please like and subscribe. Thank you. See you again soon.